Okay, on the last video I did this 16 AN top radiator hose. Now I'm going to do the bottom, which is a 20 AN. I did get a section of 20 AN hose from some company on eBay, and the dorks put it in the package like this and kinked it in 2 spots. Luckily I need less than that, but it was kind of comical because I ordered 1 foot. They sent me 2 feet, but they sent it in a package that was 15 inches corner to corner. They sent 2 feet and then they folded it in 2 spots. It was kinked in 2 spots like this and zip tied together. Why? I have no idea, but that was kind of a weird thing. Might not seem like that huge of a deal that it's kinked and it's going to be like for a radiator hose, but I have had AN hose like that break from a slight kink in it. It was on a fuel pressure line, or it was on a fuel line. On the Mustang, it was one of the crossover sections, and it was just slightly kinked a little bit, and it ended up breaking that hose. This could just be entirely speculation here, but I feel like once you kink it, you kind of generate a weak spot in that hose, and it could just wear faster over time or risk rupturing. And that's not something that I want to deal with on this. So the reason I'm doing the AN lines is so I don't have to deal with regular rubber radiator hose in case of like a head gasket failure, and then the hose bursting or the hose popping off. So radiator hose with hose clamps can be good to a certain extent, but the hose clamps can also slip off, or the hose can rupture easier, and then you get water under the tires at the track, and that's not good. So that is the entire reason for doing AN lines. It's not like a cosmetic thing. It does look nice, but the reason I'm doing it is for the safety aspect of it, that I don't have to worry about this fitting popping off, and then these hoses are going to be stronger than like a factory rubber hose would be. So that's entirely safety related. It costs more to do it, obviously, but I feel like the safety is worth it. So what I have here is a 20 AN straight fitting, and look at this thing compared to my hand. See, if you look at the 690 compared to the 2045, it's really, really big. It almost looks like cartoonish. So those 2 fittings are going to be going on. I did weld the 20 AN bung onto the thermostat housing. This thing really welded like crap. You know, this is not an Instagram weld at all. We're going to have to hide this one from everyone. But for some reason, the cast side of it just wanted to keep exploding. So it's like a brand new piece, but I could not get a clean weld on any side of it. Even though I did clean it and stuff, it just really welded like crap, and that's what we ended up with. I did also take the inside of this 20 fitting on the lathe and kind of opened it up, tapered it out to the opening size of the thermostat housing, just to give it a little bit better transition. So now I'm going to go ahead and make the hose and put these fittings on. Honestly, this thing is going to be so close, these fittings are almost touching. So there it is with the thermostat housing kind of just held on there by hand, the 45 going into the straight section, and the fittings are really only like a ½ an inch apart. So it's really close. That might be a problem actually, so we'll see like after I get some runtime on it. If it's too close, like if it's putting a lot of stress on this fitting, it might crack the radiator or something. So I might have to move this outlet fitting up or down just so I can get a little bit more hose length in there to account for the torque of the engine, or if there's like rock on the engine. I feel like the polyurethane bushings that are on there are pretty decent. They're not as flexible as a rubber bushing like that used to be on here. The fittings also do have a little bit of play in them, so maybe it'll be good. Okay, so good news, I got the hose done. Bad news, it didn't really fit. So this is going to be a little more challenging than I thought, just because of how tightly that hose fits. And I do got, I would say, about 1 inch of hose in there. And this is about probably a ½ inch to the right. See, there's the bolt hole there, and it just doesn't quite line up. So what I'm doing now is I'm modifying this some more to try to line these pieces up, and then I can re-weld it. But I wanted to show, look at all the pitting and all the holes inside of there. It's like Swiss cheese. When I said it was just kind of bubbling and it was really hard to weld, look how bad that is on the inside. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, but it was like really, really hard to weld. Yeah, this is what this piece keeps doing. You can see the arc kind of cleaned up a little bit on that spot, and then I get over here and there's certain spots in it that just explode no matter how much I clean it. So I'm guessing it's just stuff embedded in the cast material. I mean, that was the weld I did on the water pump. I'm using the exact same settings and everything, and it just like, this thing just explodes. All right, well, trying to make the best out of a bad situation here. I just used some sandpaper, some rough grit sandpaper, a little bit on the sander, a little flap wheel. You can just see how pitted this stuff is, and that's not even by the weld. So like the weld is up here, but this area down here, as you try to like blend it in, it would just explode more all the way down here. I don't really think it had anything to do with the weld joint. This must have just been some really dirty cast or something. So at least that looks okay, like 15-foot view, and it'll be buried so you won't really see it. As long as it doesn't leak, I'll be happy with it. Maybe happy's a stretch, but it'll work. Alrighty, there's the bottom hose. It took quite a bit of work to get it in there. So I'm not really sure how I feel about it because it's pretty tight in there and it's kind of complicated. So I have to actually loosen this bolt. I have to take this bolt out and this bolt out, lift the radiator up and actually swing the radiator out to be able to get the AN fittings together. So I think just anytime I service it or anytime I work on it, I'm going to have to take the thermostat housing off and probably just leave it connected to the radiator. When I pull the radiator and all that stuff out, I'll probably just leave it connected like that. Because with the radiator in position, I can't actually get the thermostat housing to swing up into place with the thermostat in the housing. Take the thermostat housing bolts off and then just leave the hose together and then pull everything out as one piece with the radiator. I can swing this up and down, but with the thermostat in the housing or in the water pump, it swings up basically flush right with this, so it's a little bit hard to get in and out. So the bottom pin of the radiator actually goes into the frame, so I got to lift it up and then push it back, and that gives me enough clearance to either start to thread this one on, or I can thread it on this one first and then have the whole thermostat housing back and then push the radiator forward and put these bolts in. So I guess it's not too bad for what it is. This hose does flex a bit, believe it or not. So it should be just enough to deal with the engine torquing. So I'm just gonna leave that for now. Next I'll probably be doing like feed and drain lines, and then I'll start working on the fuel system after I get the intake on. I do have my oil pressure sensor and my fitting for that, so I'll show you guys how I normally do that in the next video.